Hey family, welcome back to my channel. This is the first viewing of February. You're on Life of Interruptions with me, Pearl Osa, and I thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for coming back week after week. Thank you for subscribing, and thank you for being part of the notification gang. So can you go ahead and do that now if you haven't done that before? Today is, as I said, the first video for February, and across the world many people consider February to be the month of love. And if we're honest with ourselves, it's not really been celebrated as the month of love. Actually, it's been celebrated as the month of lust. And it's been highly commercialized, so the people who cannot afford to lust the way that other people do feel like they don't have a right to participate in this month of love. And that, for me, is the reason why I don't necessarily subscribe to the whole Valentine's idea, apart from the history thereof. But I am a sucker for love, like I said before, for a romantic story, especially when the king of romance himself, the Most High God, writes those love stories. And so this month, I'm going to be showcasing beautiful love stories handwritten by the hand of God. I've already told my love story, so I'm not going to go there again. But I realized it's something that I had not shared, which might be more relevant for the singles amongst us, is I want to share the story of how I prepared for marriage. I want us to unpack how I prepared for marriage, so that people who might not be married yet might be able to take one or two pointers, from my story. So I'm going to tell the story chronologically, starting from my teens. In my teens, there was no preparing for marriage. Number one, because I was too young. I wasn't interested. But number two, because I did not want to be married. I categorically always said that I will never be married. I spoke ahead of me and said I wasn't going to be married, and that was because of a number of reasons. The chief reason being the fact that I was angry, bitterly angry. I want to explain, I wasn't just mad. I was bitterly angry with my biological father. I was angry with him, and he had not given me any inspiration to want, to be with a man on a long-term basis and call him my husband. And so based on that, I was angry with him. I was angry with all men by extension. I did not want to get married. And also within my family, whether on my mother's side or my father's side, I had not seen any inspiration that I knew of that made me say, here's a success story, and one that I wanted to emulate. It was just on either side. It was just nothing to write home about, especially the women. The men, could mask it, they could cheat, they could have different women, but the women I could just see did not look to me to be happy. And so I was like, I'm not going to be one of those. One of the reasons my mom tells me that she left my father was because, this I found to be very profound. She said, I did not want to sit in that toxic environment and have you growing up thinking that what you were surrounded by, what you could see, lovelessness, was the definition of marriage. I didn't want you growing up and deciding that was all there was going to be to it. And so for my sake, she left. She left, but she always said, he's your father. My fight with him is my fight, not your fight. So I want you to respect him. I want you to honor him. It's an instruction of scripture. I want you to go visit him. And she would insist that I go visit him. Sometimes she would drop me off herself. She would get a driver to drop me. She just was like, you need to go visit your father. And if she wasn't coming with me, I would abscond and run away and pretend I'd go and visit him and come back home. I was having none of it. So that was my teen years. Then I got into varsity. And in varsity, I no longer had that hard line approach to marriage. I was no longer saying, I'm never going to get married, I was no longer saying, no man is going to tell me what to do. Because that's how I was with my mom, when I was a teenager. As a teenager, I saw my mother handle her business, take care of everything, and always say to me, don't sell yourself for nothing. You're not for sale. No man, she'll show me around the house. She'll say, you see around here? No one can ever tell me he bought me anything here. And so for me, that was like, okay, so that's going to be my rhetoric. That's going to be my narrative. No one's ever going to tell me they bought me anything. But when I grew now in varsity, I was a little less hard-lined about that. Now I was like, marriage, okay, whether or not I really wasn't bothered. You know how I refer to that phase of my life? I would say I wasn't hungry. And I wasn't hungry because I was constantly snacking. on rubbish, and when you're snacking on junk food, you don't allow your body to get to a point where it has an appetite for good food. So I never settled, I was just all over the show. A bit of this, a bit of that, taste this here, taste that there. I was not going to be committed, and therefore I was not attracting commitment. And when I did, there were times where there was serious, upstanding individuals, and when I see that seriousness, it was like that Runaway Bride story. Anyone got serious, I was just like, no. I would get jitters, I would become crazy, I would run, I would play harder to get, like, I'm in the relationship, but all of a sudden I would switch off. I was saying okay, but I wasn't serious enough for a real good meal. And then I had an encounter. This was now out of varsity. So I get out of varsity, and I'm still pecking around, still snacking here and snacking there. And this time around, I really, really began to attract rubbish. Like the decent individuals that from my varsity days, those kinds are not coming anymore. It was almost like, the what do they call those things? The chickens were coming home to roost. It was rubbish. Like if I tell you the stories of my rubbish, yeah. It was bad news. I remember the one guy who lived with his pastor, and I was just like, I'm not good. What do you do for a living? Like this guy just lived in opulence. There was money. There was like, what do you do? What do you do? I need to know. I'm coming to help. And I would say to him, if I find out at any point in time you're into anything shady, I would drop you, even if it's at the altar. I don't care. I don't need money that bad as to compromise my values. What do you do? And he would never answer me. He gave me the runaround, or he'd done investment banking. He worked for a firm called the Bull Run or something. I go check out the Bull Run, as we know, as a restaurant in Sandton. So I then began to just observe him spiritually, and he lived with his pastor. And his pastor one time had this prayer session where he was talking about Jacob and how Jacob was a cheat and he, a liar and a thief, and God still blessed him. And so there's nothing wrong with that line of business. And then I was just like, penny dropped. So when I had a one-on-one with the pastor, I was just like, and he said to me, listen, this is about the fact that this guy is at the age to get married. He's done well in business and it's time for him to get married. If it's not you, it'll be somebody else. That you're pretty is not an issue. I could marry you. Yo, guys, I looked at this guy. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. So I'm not gonna go there. I was just like, how am I in this situation? How is this man having this conversation with me? How am I listening to this? And I think I had let myself sink so low, to be in some of these scenarios. But anyway, this is where we were. I told you the incident of having to scale the fence and jump over to catch someone else, catch my boyfriend at the time with someone else. And of course, when I threw a tantrum, the one thing I didn't tell you that time is I got so mad, threw a tantrum, that now he's like, okay, I've never seen her this angry, I don't know what to do. And he takes a ring that he'd been wearing off his pinky finger, some cheap silver thing, and puts it on my index finger and says to me, I don't know what this means, but. And then when he relocated out of town, we were now doing a long distance thing, and we're talking, on the phone one day. I was just like, okay, you're not here, I don't know where we stand, I don't know what's going on. I just remember you put some ring on my finger and said you don't know what I mean. What exactly was that? And he was like, oh, we got engaged, like we were getting. Then now I went and bought a ring. It was a cheap stone, a cubit and some silver, glass and silver, right? And put it on my proper engagement finger just to legitimize the thing. Like I was helping a brother along. The shows of craziness. Anyhow, after all of that madness, feeding on all that junk, that unhealthy food, I had an encounter with the Lord. I know it broke me. Wailing like I was at a funeral. This one, guys, I wept. You know that one shortest scripture in the Bible that says Jesus wept? I wept. I wailed, and I promised the Lord. I was like, you went through that? Every time I go back into fornication and into all of this nonsense, I'm putting the nails back. Why must I make you do it again and again on my behalf, for my sake? No. Guys, that day I made up my mind. All this rubbish stops. If I'm going to do church, I'm going to do church for real. I'm going to be the church. I'm done playing the church. I'm done walking into church holding the boyfriend's hand in the house of God. Being in church on Sunday, but being in the world like from Monday to Saturday. Apart from the fact that I was reading the scripture, but I wasn't living it. I wasn't being a doer of the word. And that night I cut off everything that I was, involved in. I stopped. I came correct. And then I started this journey in preparation to be a wife. So this is where the story starts, guys. I started the journey in preparation to be a wife. And the first thing I needed to relook was my list. So like every young girl, you have a list: a tall, dark, handsome, moneyed, car, house, blah, 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 blah. Now that I was no longer feasting on junk and needed a good, solid meal, I had to, I want to say this. When I stopped feeding on junk, I then realized I was hungry. All of the bravado and the feminist attitude and the I don't want to get married, I don't need a man, who cares, no. All that took a back seat, and a hunger developed in me. It was a hunger for love. I never knew I had been formulated with the appetite for love. My husband often says to me, he says in Pidgin, he says, the person we want find love, don't find the person we want lover, right? Which means the person who was looking for love found the person who was looking to give love. He tells me that when the Lord told him that I would be his wife, he then Lord tells my husband, the best way to get the best out of her, he sees a vision of me being made. Like I'm on a table, like in a tailor's workshop, like a fashion shop. I'm laid out on a table, and the Lord has a tape measure. And as he measures, he pours in love. And he measures and he pours in love. And he keeps measuring, and for every measurement, he poured in a whole lot of love. And he said to my husband, to get the best out of her, you need to pour love into her. I have made her to respond to love, right? And I didn't know all this time that that's what I was busy looking for, just real love. And so at the time when I now said, you know what, I'm coming correct, I made a vow to the Lord. I said, I've played around. There's been good girls who've been going to church and been serving you and been reading the word and living the word. I looked at those girls and I was like, I call them all sorts of names, you goody two shoes, blah, blah, blah. So now I know I've disqualified myself. If you would have mercy and fill this hole, not the hole, there's one hole that only God can fill. That was not the hole I was talking about. Fill this space that he had created for my soulmate. If you will let him, he might have gone all this time I was playing rubbish. He might be with someone else, and I really wouldn't blame you. So if you would have mercy and just, find me someone who still is decent and pleasing to you, I would be grateful. But if not, here's my vow to you. I will never go back to what I used to be and what I used to do. I would die alone. It's okay. They've been nuns. And funny enough, growing up, my mom always used to say to me, because I'd say to her, no, button up. No, the skirt mustn't be too short, as a little girl. So she'd say to me, you're going to be a nun. I guess what she was trying to say is you're going to be a pastor, prophesying to my future. She says, you're going to be a nun. You're so prim and proper, blah, 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 blah. So at that point, I was just like, maybe this is what she kept saying. I'll be a nun if that's what you need me to be. But I know my back will not touch the ground one more time for someone who has not been sent by you and put a ring on my finger. I'm done with that. And he tested that. I must tell you, it was a lonely period. Lonely because the temptations came, the old sort of meals, all sorts of guys would come around, and something in me, the temptation. But I was working on a deal with God, and I was like, no, it's not going to happen. And I'd cry to him sometimes, like, all this time I've been playing hard, and I didn't know how painful the loneliness could be. I don't want to say I was desperate, but this is why you don't arouse passion before it's time. Because there's some things you just don't need to know how they feel or the existence thereof till it's time, So I then reworked my list. This was the first thing. And I've got a copy of my book in front of me where the new list is written. It's a 5-point list and it's weighted. So the first thing was, I said he must be spirit-filled, tongue-speaking, born again, on fire for Jesus. I don't want to be unequally yoked. And for that, I was given a score of 30%. Number 2, he must have a vision and a purpose and be going somewhere. I believe that I'm called to be a helpmate. I need to be helping him meet something. 25%. We must be emotionally compatible. He must not mock or ignore my emotions, even though he may not understand them. 20%. Number 4, he must be physically attractive to me. He may not be Mr. World to someone else, but I need to feel something when I look at him. Really, girl, I'm going to have to be faithful to him for the rest of my life. And while I admit that the belly, the wrinkles, and the grays are sure to set in, I'd like to enjoy him before and even after they do. So that was a 15% weighing. And then I said number 5, he must be able to be a man about the bills and have a good credit rating. So that was 10%. Then I said a God-ordained man who can satisfy at least 75% of this list from the onset and shows promise about the remaining 25% has hope with me. The first 75% is more difficult to learn or acquire after marriage than the last 25% is. So that was the list I reworked. But I must tell you, after having said this is my list, I then began to work on me so that I was compatible to that list. How did I work on myself? I read, guys, I read and I read and I read again. I was in the bookshop every month end and I was buying thousands of rands worth of books on the topic of marriage, and then the most important book I read was the Bible. So I had a girlfriend who I would every Saturday would sit together from morning till about 9 p.m. except when we had seminars or something we were going for, or we had things to do. But other than that, every Saturday we sat together. We would comb through the scriptures thematically. So say, for example, we were studying a theme on communication, on the mouth, on how to speak. We would look for every scripture that aligned to that. Tongue, lips, teeth, speech, words, communicate, anything to do with talking. Because I was really conscious that, the way I had used my mouth in time past, the things I had said, and the way that I could speak to a person. Like I was sharp-tongued. My mom used to say, I'd say 1, you said 20. And I just knew that that was not suitable for marriage. So, a weekend we would focus on all of those scriptures. Even if there were 100, we would read each one, we would pray each one, and break our fast after that prayer. But leading to that Saturday, we would have like 2 books for me, 2 books for her. So that between us we had read 4 books. And when we'd meet on the Saturday morning, first thing we do is exchange notes on the books, prayer points on the books, then go through the scriptures, and then at the end we will pray collectively everything we've learned from the scriptures plus the 4 or however many books we did during the week. So I prepared. I went to marriage seminars. I prayed. I went to single seminars. I asked questions. I learned. And then I began to repent for the words that I had used my mouth to say. Those times when I said, I'll never get married, don't want to get married. I realized those words were hanging in the atmosphere and I pulled them down and I renounced them. That's why the Bible says you will account for every idle word you've ever said. I dealt with those words, repented of them. This is important. There was a friend of mine who had said, men, marriage, and we used to say the same language. Misery likes company. Be careful who you hang with. So we had agreed, don't want to get married. And she had said, it's okay for me to just have a child, forget about a man. By such and such an age, I want a child and I'll raise my child by myself. Truly, truly, till today, guys, she's not married. She had that child at that age and she's raising him by herself. So I realized I had to take back the words I had said. The words you say to these random individuals, I'll love you forever. For who, for what? I had to take that back. There was once I said concerning a girlfriend of mine who I hadn't seen in a while, I said, my best friend, she's got to be my maid of honor. If I don't see her, I don't get married. Till today, I've not seen her. If I didn't take those words back, I'll still be waiting for her somewhere. She's married where she is. So renounced words like that. I also separated myself from the patterns, that's the word, from the patterns and the cycles in my family. And for you, it might be that people always get pregnant out of wedlock, never get married, pregnant for different men. It might be that engagements happen, but the engagements are broken. It might be divorce. It might be all sorts of things. And you just notice like all the girl children in the family going through the same thing. I divorced myself from those patterns and from the covenants that had permitted those patterns to exist. Because as I said, the ladies in my family had not shown me anything inspirational concerning marriage. My mom had a child with my father, who she'd been married to, but they were out of the marriage. Her sisters, same story. Had children, had been married, out of the marriage. And here they are now having to look after these girls by themselves. So there was a pattern there that I was in. Even in my generation, cousins, there was babies, there was no husbands. I was just like, okay, no. That thing, she stops here. So I had to break those cycles. And make a turn. And he continued to test me, test my resolve. The next thing I did was to become relevantly social. Let me break this down. I was not socially relevant. I was relevantly social. What does that mean? That means I positioned myself in the right places when it came to being available for coaching. Right? It was not, my mindset was not in the boardroom, in the club, in a friend's house. Not to say that God could not bring you someone in a friend's house, at the shopping mall, at work. But I realized that based on the list that I wanted and how much of a godly man I wanted, I had to be looking in church. Which is why now I need to, well, I wasn't looking because I'm not the one who finds, but you get what I'm saying. I just had to be in a findable position, right? This is a problem. I know many ladies who live in regret today because the men in church were not ready. And church girls had to leave church and go with worldly boys. There was a girl that I once prayed for, and as we were praying and she was going through deliverance, a spirit of soul manifested. Now, for the life of me, I could not remember the meaning of the word soul. While I'm still ministering to her, I send someone and I say, please look through the dictionary. Let's find what soul means. They look through the dictionary and soul, female pig. I was like, yeah, female pig. This is a girl, beautiful, calm, well-mannered, godly child. In church with her mom, but she had now become an equally yoked. She was in a relationship with a man of a different religion, and he had filthy expectations. I mean, the thing she listed, it was anal sex. It was the sorts of things that, a good, godly child of God has no business doing. But let's not talk about whether in marriage or out of marriage. Like, he had defiled her beyond comprehension. And so she was manifesting as a pig. Like, her body had become, yeah. And I just thought to myself, this is so sad. Because in church, the only thing that most of the boys have heard is, make sure you can provide, and she's supposed to submit to you. Clock. So they are out there hustling. They don't know about purpose. They don't know about love. They don't know how to leave and cleave. You've got mama's boys up in the church, running after money, giving you the money, insisting on submission, and being like, well, I paid the bills. Because that's all he was taught. The people in church who are really prepared for marriage, who are hammered every day, they hear submit. They hear how to cook, how to clean, how to what. They're the ones who are taught how to be prayer warriors. It's the women. Now these women are groomed and they're ready and they're wives. Hence the Bible says, he who finds a wife, not a girl in preparation, not a woman, a wife. Because they know that there's those mamas in church that are going to whip you into shape and make you a wife in no time. There you are, a wife, no husbands. No husband material. And then these girls get desperate, they get frustrated, and they leave. Now, think about it. Bad boys have been playing in the street, and when they decide, you know what, I need to settle down, where do they go looking for a wife? Church. Who do they find? These innocent girls who are all prepared. They come there, they mess with them, they dump them. Hence, the divorce rates in church are equal, if not more, than those in the world. Anyway, a side rant. So, I became relevantly social. I was positioning myself in the right place. Hence those seminars and singles meetings and blah, blah, blah. But also serving in the church. Now, I used to be very stuck up. I was a snob. And I was an introvert, bad combination. And so for me, I was one of those girls who goes to church and they're washing plates after service and they're doing setup and they're doing sanctuary. No. That was for someone else. I came, I paid my tithe, I got in my fancy car and I drove off. God had to break that off me. And today I'm a pastor's wife. Can you imagine? So the need for hands to be available to serve in the church, I've had to just rearrange my anybody who's in the same church I go to and is listening to the story. Don't laugh at me, right? So he humbled me in that regard. And you know, when you look at big marriage stories in scripture, the story of Moses where he met his wife, Isaac where his wife was found for him, Jacob, you know, the father of our faith, so to speak, who later became Israel. All these men found their women at the well. Think about it. Rebecca, when she follows Eliezer back to meet with Isaac, her husband, they say she goes with her handmaiden. And I'm thinking, you had a handmaiden and you were at the well fetching pitchers. It takes 20 pitchers to feed one camel. He had 10. Do the math. And she humbly ran. I'll get water for you. I'll get water for your camels also. I'll get water for the men you're with. And she fed him and took him home and made sure he was comfortable. So I had to quickly eat humble pie. It was not going to be wife material talking about I've paid my tithe and that should be good enough for you. Because remember, depending on how the balance is, this man is bringing money home. So my ability to bring money home is not a measure of anything. Can you serve? Okay? So I'm putting all this in place, and then I begin to pray for him wherever he is. I'll pray for him like I knew him every day. Father, I thank you that you bless my husband wherever he is today in his encounters, in his endeavors. I'll read books like The Power of a Praying Wife by Stormy Martian, I think her name is, or Martin, I don't know how to pronounce it. And I would pray as though, you know, calling those things that are not as if they are. That's how I pray. But the final thing, guys, was that I actually physically then, you know the story when I told you how we met, becoming Mrs. Osa. Go back and watch the video if you haven't. But at that story, I tell how that morning I'm going to church and the Lord, and I say to the Lord, today I'm done with the boys, give me a husband. If there's going to be any man, let him be my husband. I had never physically prayed for a husband. I had prayed that, you know, this gap would be filled, that I would no longer be lonely, that the Lord would bring me someone. What is someone? I prayed that I would be suitable, that he would have mercy, that he would fix me, he would forgive me. But I've never said, I want a husband. Now, that kind of prayer, like, you know, like how do I pray for a husband? Me? No, that's a prayer of desperation. I'm too much to pray for a husband. You know what? Rubbish. Don't those girlfriends who are telling you, girl, go about your career, get your business, handle your business, get your education, forget about a man. Let them continue like that. I know many of those, and today they have their diploma. They sleep with their diploma at night under their pillow. Good jobs. They stay in the job all night and then come home. And they're still, like I used to be, from buffet table to buffet table, they are sampling sandwiches and all sorts of meals, snacking on rubbish and complaining they can't find any good men. So the next time someone tells you, why are you praying for a husband? You're so desperate. Why are you getting and we walk around pretending we don't want to be married because that's what society wants to see. Pray for your husband. Pray for your business. Pray for your career. Pray for your children. Pray for your education. You know why? Because you can do all things. Don't let someone make you feel like it needs to be one in place of the other. That's what a Proverbs 31 woman is. You can do all things. So mind your business and pray for what it is you're praying for, and let her handle what she wants to handle. Two of you are not in the same category. Hear me well. So that day he made me articulate the prayer, the actual prayer, to round up all of this. And that day I was found, y'all. A good thing, I believe. It took a long time to become a good thing. I'm still a work in progress. But that day, Pastor John found a good thing and obtained favor in the eyes of the Lord. So that's my story of how I prepared for marriage. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comment box. Any contributions, drop them in the comment box. If you've got a story that's equally interesting, please drop them in the comment box. And I'd like to add, please guys, follow me on Instagram. It's life.of.interruptions. And follow me on Facebook. It's Life of Interruptions without the dots. Do subscribe. Share this video. Make a girlfriend's watch party out of it. Get some popcorn and sit down with any of your girls who are not yet married and say, let's take some notes. Between myself and a few of the other married women out there, and books that you're reading, and most importantly the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, you should come right. And then maybe invite me to the wedding, because I've got a wedding song that will just be beautiful. You must have heard it. It says, girl, I say I do. Okay, that's his part. So So I say, boy, I say I do. Forever wanna share my life with you. And anything it takes, boy, I go do. Boy, I say I do. Go over to John Osa's YouTube channel and look for the video of that song. And then call us to come sing it when you're getting married. May the Lord bless you. May He keep you. May He cause His face to shine upon you. And may He bring you to the one whose rib you were made of. And if you're a guy watching this video, I pray that He will bring you to your good thing, and that you will find great favor. If you're already in the party, in the club of the married people, a good thing can only become better. So God bless you. Love you much. Love you plenty. See you next time.
A girl I say I do. Forever wanna share my life with you. Anything it takes, girl, I go do. Girl I say I do.
Boy, I say I do.